So that was my 4 day hike through Mount Kenya National Park, starting at Cinnamon Gate at 2,600 meters, leading up to Point Lenana at 4,985 meters, and then finishing the traverse to Chogoria Gate. So now, as a bit of a map and geography nerd, I'm very excited to explain where it all happened through the help of Google Earth. So, let's explore. From the Americas, we are going to pan over to Africa and then slowly zoom into East Africa near the borders of Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. Off to the left, you'll see Lake Victoria, the world's second largest freshwater lake, which is the chief reservoir of the Nile River. Towards the middle right is the tallest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. And located between both are Serengeti National Park and Masai Mara Reserve, which is where the great migration of wildebeest passes through, amongst the Big Five and more. Descending into Kenya, we are now looking at the capital city of Nairobi, which is home to over 5 million people. Hugging the southern side of this metropolis is Nairobi National Park, where you can find lions, rhinos, cheetahs, and much more, unlike any major city can provide you. Here is the central business district, known as the CBD, which is the central hub of transport within the city, where many local buses called matatus pass through, including one that I took to Nanyuki town to begin the trek. It was about $6 for a 4-hour trip. Rising above Mount Kenya National Park, you'll notice just how large the area is, clocking in at 715 kilometers squared. And come to realize that is a sanctuary for many animals surrounding its peaks, including elephants, zebras, leopards, spotted hyena, and more. We only got to see zebras and water bucks, but came across many footprints, including the paw of a leopard on the trail. In Nanyuki town, I prepped for the hike by hiring a mountain guide that I got connected with by calling the park service. Here I bought the overload of ramen, kerosene, clothing, etc. before departing to Cinnamon Gate via private car for 2,000 shillings or $16, where we began a 9-kilometer hike to Old Moses Camp, reaching up to 3,300 meters. The next day was a journey filled with a series of traverses going up and down the boggy, muddy ridges towards the river valley that led straight to Shipton Camp. In total, a 14-kilometer day. Along the way, we came across the alien-like plants called Lobelia teleki, Dendro senecio, and more, one of which is nicknamed water cabbage, that can only be found in alpine zones near the equator, some of which I had only previously seen while hiking in Colombia. At Shipton Camp, we slept at 4,200 meters and only got the slightest glimpse of the mountain peaks before struggling for Z's during a night dominated by rain and eventual snow. It was genuinely frigid the entire time walking, but it slowly warmed up as we rose higher and higher with the approaching sunrise. After the winds started picking up on the peak, we started to descend and go back through the alien-like boggy desert of the water cabbages and more, going closer and closer towards Lake Ellis, and eventually it would be Chogoria Gate. One of the highlights coming down was staying atop the cliffs overlooking Lake Mickelson, where we stood so close to the edge and saw the scree of pebbles dancing their way into the abyss. I genuinely feared for my life, even though I love heights. Further along, we came across a massive gorge and valley that called to memory the feeling of the opening scene from Lion King, of the wildebeest rushing through en masse. By the end of the hike, once we reached Lake Ellis, I was completely burned out by a day that began at 2:20 in the morning and finished around 4 p.m. The following day was a very easy descent as well, to Chogoria Gate. Not too much to see necessarily, but the beauty was that I found out that we would not have to hire a 4x4, which would have been 9,000 Kenyan shillings or $73, because it gets really, really muddy on the road. It's not paved by any means. And as we're walking along the path, we were looking for paw prints and, seeing different like buffalo prints and so on. And Patrick noticed one print and called my attention. It's like, this is a leopard print. And you can see how wide the base of the paw is because it needs it for running fast. I'm like, what? And it looks fresh. It was maybe within 24 hours that leopard had passed across that trail. Eventually, we did finish at Chigori Gate and then got the car. And the funny thing enough is we did get stuck on that trail, having to bring together different rocks and tree branches to fit the gaps where the tires would eventually have to pass through. But sure enough, we managed and got to Chigoria, where I split from Patrick after having some lunch and headed back to Nairobi.